My channel. If you're new here, my name's Angel Baby Kyra. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Substack if you want to read more about this topic. I wrote about it there as well. But I was supposed to do this on Monday, but things have just been so busy, and I wanted to do this Haute Take Mondays thing. I thought it would be a cool way that I can try to do like weekly uploads, or at least every Monday. So today we're going to be talking about Sabrina Carpenter's Man's Best Friend artwork that is like making the internet spiral a lot. I just want to say that there's so much to go into this, but this is just going to be like a quick little video. I don't anticipate these videos to be longer than 10 minutes because it's just supposed to be like a quick little thing going on. If you want a more in-depth dive into Sabrina Carpenter and her music and how she got her rise to fame, let me know in the comments. But as I said, this artwork has really been stirring up the internet per usual. But I want to discuss if it is a feminist piece of work, if it's satirical, or is it pandering to the male gaze and perpetuating harmful stereotypes. And before you roll your eyes, just hear me out for the rest of this video, and also some TikToks I will include that also explain it very well into how this could be contributing to a perpetual stereotype or perpetual narrative that has been harmful to women for decades. So now people are saying that the issue with this album cover is not the album cover itself, it's the people who are perceiving the album cover, which everyone loves to say media literacy. People don't have media literacy anymore. It's been a buzzword on TikTok for, I don't know, maybe almost a year now, a couple months maybe. But defenders of this album artwork, who are obviously fans of Sabrina Carpenter, say that this artwork is satire. It's satirical. Someone on Instagram literally called her a satirist. Is that how you say it? And I'm like, how? Defenders cite like irony, claiming it's a critique on objectification. It's obviously satirical, right? But it's not. If a lot of people are not getting the satiricalness of this artwork, then maybe it wasn't executed right, if that was her intention for it to be a satirical piece. And it's not really surprising that she kind of centers this towards male gaze, to being submissive, which we'll get into later about like why that's kind of harmful to women and making them like desirable. And I do want to mention this one clip of her Mexico City performance clip where she sings, said, "I'm full grown but I look like a niña." I'll put the whole thing there, but it was like put something big in my casita. Like, oh, okay. It just makes me uncomfortable, right? Red flags on Reddit, people saying she looks like a little girl while implying sex. It's really weird. And also the Lolita photo shoot is something I want to mention too. If you don't know about the book Lolita, it's basically a girl getting groomed by an older man. I think he was a teacher or a writer or something. But I think that's really weird, and she understands that her audience does consist of kids. Now that isn't like her fault that kids are listening to her music. Obviously she's very expressive about her sexuality and what she enjoys about sex, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. That's completely the parents' fault for them if they let their child, or unknowingly let their child, listen to Sabrina Carpenter. It's not her fault. But at the same time, she like should understand, like as an artist, she kind of has like an obligation to understand that a lot of her fans are young. And feminist critique and visual power dynamics. Glasgow Women's Aid pins it as regressive, calling out undertones of domination. Ex-critics say hard to read as anything other than female degradation, and this highlights that sexualized imagery isn't empowering without intention and audience insight, which I completely agree that it's not empowering, especially if we look at Sabrina Carpenter, who is a white woman, right? She has a lot of privileges that a lot of other people don't, right? And she can like flip back and forth between being this submissive kind of person in a relationship like with a man. However, I do also want to make the 1960s ad comparisons, which really like solidified my thoughts on this with like historical context. Vintage ads like "You mean a woman can open it" use submissive female tropes carrying stereotypes of dependency and objectification. People.com. These visuals reinforced sexist power dynamics rather than critiquing them, right? It's making it normalized. It's kind of like tongue-in-cheek a little bit, degrading women and displaying them as either a prop or maybe like property or like a human or like a person. Sabrina's visuals echo these tropes quite a lot, ironic or not. The optics are dangerously similar, which I feel like personally, I think as an artist and an artist myself, you have to be careful about the images and references that you use to portray your art in your own way. Portraying this sexualized imagery like it's a 1960s ad where it like the pulling of the hair, it's just very, very eerie. And I feel like that no, feminism is not going back decades and decades solely because of Sabrina Carpenter. However, I think it does contribute to the degradation of women and what women have continually fought for. Now everyone's saying, well, it's the right to choose. Yes, it's the right to choose for yourself, but when you're a person having that platform and objectifying yourself and catering to a certain male audience, I think that's a bit harmful, especially to women who are trying to make these stereotypes about women, these views about women, not be such a common thing, especially among male audiences, and to defeat the misogyny that this the US has been brought up in the patriarchy. So I feel like personally that definitely Sabrina could have done like a better route, like maybe if she switched places with like the man or whatever. I feel like that would have been more satirical, but the mere fact that she like is on her knees and she has that like kind of like doe-eyed look, right, with the guy like pulling her hair. I will say though, I don't agree with like how people are reaching that she's being dragged across the floor or she has makeup smeared on her face. It's not like that at all. I feel like that's reaching 100%, and it's not like glamorizing abuse in that way, but it is perpetuating views on women like how they did in the 1960s, which was through media. So the media that we consume is really important in how we analyze it and how we choose to perceive it. And in the long run, at the end of the day, like you can't control how people perceive your art. If someone perceives it a certain way, then there might have been like certain things in that art that correlated with them to conclude to that view that they have of this piece of artwork. And if you look at like kind of like I think the vinyl cover too, it's very, very reminiscent, and there's no way in fucking hell that she was not inspired by these 1960s ads. Being hypersexual doesn't always mean that it is feminism. Talking about sex doesn't always mean feminism. I think that's something that people tend to confuse, and I'm taking a feminism course right now and I'm like learning a lot about it because I feel like I've like read so many things about all the different kinds of feminism, so I'm trying to figure out where I like belong in this. But I feel like it doesn't mean hypersexuality doesn't automatically make you a feminist. And I think that's something that a lot of people tend to think, that if you talk about sex a lot, or for artists for example, if you talk about sex a lot, then you're like a feminist, you're empowered. It doesn't always necessarily mean that, and I feel like Gen Z in general feels like that it's kind of liberating, but to an extent it can be liberating, but then to the other extent it can be harmful and objectifying women, which is something that women have always tried to fight against, was just objectifying themselves. But then, you know, the people who are against feminism are like, oh, they want to stop being objectified, but then they do this. I think there has to be like somewhere like a middle ground where women can be sexually expressive, but also understanding that hypersexuality isn't feminism, and also is a feminism or has feminist aesthetic and not really like what feminism is about. And historical echoes warn us. If we just look in history and how women have continually been treated, especially women of color, especially trans women, I think that there's a lot to look into, which goes a lot deeper than this, because again, Sabrina's like saying this from like a place of privilege, so like not a lot of people will be like, oh well, that's weird that she's saying that she looks like a Nina. You know, it's like she has this very soft, like doll-like, innocent kind of look, but of course caters to like the male gaze, which is where, you know, she'll get like a lot of her audience from. And then also just like appearing very childish, which I think femininity also, people think if you're feminine then you're like childish, and they associate that with like innocence or docileness or submissiveness, which are things that in the 60s were what was expected of women to be deemed desirable. Repeating sexist ads risks normalizing the very issues that feminism critiques, and I feel like, you know, people do be dramatic sometimes about like, oh my god, this is taking us back 50 years. No, it's not, because that would mean that the work that women and femme and trans women have done so far like means nothing, which no, it actually really does mean a lot. So when people like Sabrina Carpenter put out this artwork, right, I think it's fair enough to critique her in the way that she executed her satiricalness, if you want to call it that. It could have been bold if accompanied by a statement or framing. Instead, it flirts with damaging visuals without accountability. If you want a deeper breakdown, I wrote a full analysis exploring media literacy, feminism, and vintage, and ad parallels. Well, I'll have more examples on there on my Substack. So the link is below if you want to subscribe or read the article that I wrote. Do you believe this image is purposeful satire or performative shock? Drop your thoughts below with your hot takes. Hit like and subscribe, and catch me next Monday, even though today is Thursday. Let me know. Hopefully I can get this on a schedule, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching. Bye.